my brother said. "You're a joke, you'll never be like me." So I hugged him and walked out. Next month he begged me to let him stay at my place, and I just said, "You know how sometimes a single sentence can stick in your head for years, like a splinter under your skin you just can't dig out?" For me, it was always, "You're a joke, you'll never be like me." My older brother, Scott, used to throw that at me every chance he got. Every report card, every birthday, every family dinner. It was his go-to punchline. And the thing is, Scott was the golden boy. Star athlete in high school, full scholarship to a top university, smooth talker who could charm the teeth out of a dentist's mouth. He had that perfect smile, the kind that made people assume he had a perfect life. And for the longest time, I believed it too. Believed he was everything I wasn't. Until the day I stopped believing, and walked out for good. It happened on a humid Saturday afternoon, the kind that makes the air feel heavy with things unsaid. I was helping Dad fix the back fence, not that Scott ever lifted a finger when he came home. He just stood there, arms crossed, telling us what we were doing wrong like a foreman who never held a hammer. At some point, Mom called us inside for lunch, and like always, Scott made a scene. He mocked the way I was dressed, the calluses on my hands, even the fact that I still lived in the same town while he was flying coast to coast for work. That's when he dropped it again. The line, "You're a joke, man. You'll never be like me." Something shifted in that moment. I didn't respond. Didn't argue. Didn't storm off or throw something like I might have done when we were kids. Instead, I stood up, walked over, and gave him a hug. Just one, long, quiet hug. It stunned everyone into silence. Then I picked up my keys, walked out the door, and vanished from their lives. And that's where it really begins. When I say I vanished, I don't mean I ghosted them for a weekend. I mean I went full blackout. No texts. No calls. I didn't even tell Mom goodbye. I packed up the essentials, sublet my old apartment, and moved into a one-bedroom on the 27th floor of a high-rise I could barely afford, yet I needed space. From them. From him. And for the first time in years, the silence wasn't deafening. It was healing. I dove into work like a man possessed. My boss noticed. A month later, I got the promotion that had always gone to someone else, usually someone louder, flashier, more Scott. I stopped saying yes to every family event just to keep the peace. I joined a gym, got serious about my health, started eating like I cared whether I lived to see 50. I even shaved off the beard I had clung to like armor. And then, something strange happened. I started to like who I saw in the mirror. It wasn't overnight. But each day I got up earlier, stood a little straighter, looked a little less like someone's little brother and more like someone becoming a man in his own right. There was a kind of quiet satisfaction in rising without making noise. No need to post it, prove it, or parade it. Just waking up in a place I earned, feeling like I belong. And then, just when I started to believe the past had finally left me alone, the past showed up at my door, 3 knocks deep, and reeking of desperation. I knew it was him before I even looked through the peephole. There was something in the rhythm of the knock, fast, anxious, uneven. The kind of knock that said the person on the other side had lost control of their life and hoped you hadn't lost your kindness. I stood there for a second, letting my heartbeat settle, then opened the door. Scott. But not the version I'd known. His button-down was wrinkled, the top button missing. His once perfect hair was a mess of unwashed curls, and the confident grin, the one that had followed me through childhood like a shadow, was nowhere to be found. "Hey," he said. Just that. No swagger. No smart comment. Just hey, like he was 13 again, and trying to borrow my Game Boy. "What do you want, Scott?" He hesitated. Then, in a voice I barely recognized, he said, I need a place to stay. Just for a while." I stepped aside, just far enough to make it clear I wasn't inviting him in. "What happened?" I asked. He ran a hand through his hair, looked at the floor. "Lost my job. Melanie left. Took the apartment. I've been couch hopping for the past week. You're the only one who hasn't blocked my number." I hadn't blocked him because I didn't expect he'd ever need me. But there he was, 6'1", ego deflated, eyes dull. And for a moment, I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I remembered every birthday he ruined. Every holiday where he made me the punchline. Every time he smirked and said, "You'll never be like me." And now here he was, hoping I'd be better than he ever was. I didn't answer right away. I just stared at him. Scott shifted his weight, glancing down the hallway like he expected someone to come rescue him from the silence. No one did. He looked small for the first time in his life, like a kid wearing clothes too big for him. "You always said I'd never be like you," I said finally. My voice wasn't angry, just steady. "And you were right. I'm not." He looked up at me, confused. "I don't tear people down just to feel tall. I don't treat family like fanboys. I don't show up with nothing but apologies that sound like demands. I'm not demanding." I raised a hand to stop him. "You haven't even said sorry." His mouth opened, but nothing came out. For once, he had no script to read from. "I needed you to be my brother," I said, "and all I got was a critic. You fed on being the favorite, the winner, the one everyone looked up to, even if you had to step on me to keep the view. And now you're here. Broke. Alone. And I'm supposed to do what? Pretend none of that happened?" "I messed up," he said, his voice cracking. "I was wrong about you." That's when I realized he wasn't here because he had nowhere to go. He was here because he finally saw me, really saw me. Not as his shadow, not as a failure, but as someone who had outgrown him. "I've worked hard to get where I am," I told him. "This place? These walls? They were built with everything you said I'd never have. Respect. Stability. Peace." "I know," he whispered. "I don't owe you anything, Scott. Not a couch. Not a pillow. Not a second chance." He nodded slowly, eyes glossy, the full weight of it landing in his chest. He wasn't just losing a place to crash. He was losing the last person who'd ever looked up to him. I stepped back, hands on the edge of the door. "I hope you figure it out," I said, calm and clear. "But not here." Then I closed the door. Not fast. Not loud. Just final. After the door clicked shut, I stood there for a moment, hands still on the handle, the muffled sound of his footsteps retreating down the hallway fading behind me. No shouting, no pleading. Just silence. And that silence, it didn't feel empty. It felt earned. I made a cup of coffee after that, sat by the window with the skyline sprawling out in front of me. That city used to look so big, so out of reach. Now it felt like mine. Every floor I climbed, every sleepless night, every overlooked effort had brought me here. And the man I had just turned away? He was a ghost of my past, a lesson, not a threat. It's funny. For so long, I thought the pinnacle of revenge was proving him wrong. But it wasn't. It was realizing I didn't need his approval anymore. I didn't need anything from him. The real victory was how little his desperation moved me. Not because I'm heartless, but because I finally loved myself enough not to be manipulated by guilt. Over the next few days, the text started. First one-line check-ins. "Just making sure we're good." Or, "Still can't believe it, man." Then came the longer ones. Apologies that read more like memoirs. Excuses dressed up as reflections. I didn't reply to any of them. Not out of pettiness. Out of peace. I wasn't the same person he grew up mocking. That version of me, the one who flinched when he entered a room, who laughed off his jabs and swallowed resentment like water, that version died the day I walked out. This version? He'd learned to live without approval, to build something of his own, to hold the door shut when someone came knocking with bad history in their hands. About a week later, I saw Mom's name pop up on my phone. I let it ring out. Then another call. This time, Dad? I figured Scott had told them his side of the story, the same way he always had, twisting facts until he looked like the fallen hero. Eventually, curiosity won, and I picked up on the third ring. Mom sounded tired. Older than I remembered. "Your brother's going through something," she started, like she was reading from a script. He's had a rough time. Lost his job, his home. Melanie really did a number on him. I didn't say anything. We were hoping maybe you could help him. Just for a little while. You're in a good place now, and He said I was a joke. I cut in. For 20 years he told me I'd never be like him. Now he wants to be like me. And you want me to reward that? There was a pause. He regrets it. So do I said. I regret wasting so much time hoping he'd change. He's still your brother. I looked around my apartment. Clean. Quiet. Mine. Not anymore, I said. Family isn't blood. It's behavior. And I hung up. I knew what would happen next. The whispers at holiday dinners I no longer attended. The sideways glances if I ever showed up at family events. The unspoken expectation that I'd forgive, forget, fold. But I wasn't folding anymore. There's a kind of calm that comes after you burn the bridge you once cried about crossing. That was me, standing in the ashes, watching the past smolder while the present grew green and quiet under my feet. I didn't go back. Not to the family barbecues where Scott always arrived late and left early, not to the group chats filled with polite birthdays and guilt-laced memes. I didn't even answer when my aunt reached out, asking if I'd give Scott another shot. No one had asked if I was okay after 2 decades of living in his shadow. No one cared about the boy who smiled through clenched teeth while his brother absorbed all the light. So I stopped explaining myself. That was the first real freedom I found. I leaned into the life I was building. Got a new promotion 6 months after the first. Bought my own car, black, sleek, and silent like my resolve. Signed up for language classes on weekends, traveled to Montreal solo, walked streets where no one knew my name or who I used to be. At the gym, I went from awkward regular to consistent. Not ripped, never been my style, but strong. Functional. There's a power in knowing you can carry yourself, quite literally. There was a Saturday I stood in front of the mirror and caught my reflection mid-rep. My own eyes met mine, steady, solid, and I smiled. Not because I looked good, though I did, but because I didn't flinch anymore. I started dating again too, though carefully. I was picky in ways I hadn't allowed myself to be before. No more chasing approval, no more settling for someone who laughed too hard when I made self-deprecating jokes. One woman, Amelia, stuck around longer than the rest. Smart, curious, kind. She asked about my past once, and when I told her about Scott, her face didn't twist with pity. Just quiet understanding. You deserve better, she said like it was a fact, not a compliment. Yeah, I did. But Scott wasn't gone. Even when I blocked his number, changed mine, and cut the cord clean, he kept orbiting. Through people, through stories, through little reminders left in the voices of those who still couldn't believe I had the nerve to choose distance over duty. One day, almost a year after I shut the door on him, I ran into him at a coffee shop across town. Total accident. He looked better, cleaner, at least. Like he'd gotten back on his feet. He was holding a paper cup, looking down at a resume on his tablet. I saw the moment he recognized me. He stood. Walked over. Hey. It felt like time slowed, like the floor waited to see if I'd shake. I didn't. Hey. I said, casual, cool, unbothered. You look good, he said. Different. Thanks. I've been trying. Got a job in sales again. Working my way back. That's good to hear. He hesitated. I knew what was coming. That old look, like he wanted something, but didn't know how to ask without making himself smaller. You ever think about reconnecting? Clearing the air? I finished stirring my coffee. Took a sip. I already did. He blinked. What? I cleared the air. When I walked away. He didn't answer. Didn't need to. I stepped past him, tossed my stir stick in the trash, and added, Hope you keep climbing. But I'm not coming down to meet you. I didn't turn around to see his face. I didn't need to. I already knew. After that run-in, I half expected him to follow up. A message, a letter, maybe some long-winded attempt to rewrite history now that he was trying to piece his life back together. But it never came. Not even a "take care." And honestly, that was the most honest thing he'd ever done, leaving me alone. Because Scott was never the type to apologize. He didn't say sorry. He maneuvered around it. Said things like, "I was just trying to help," or, "You're being sensitive." His version of reconciliation had always been transactional. He'd admit to just enough if it meant getting something in return. A couch. A loan. A clean slate. But this time, there was nothing to bargain for. No leverage left. I had taken myself off the table. And so, for the first time in our lives, we sat on opposite sides of silence. Me, rebuilding quietly. Him, existing somewhere beyond my reach. It's strange, the space where resentment used to live. It doesn't just vanish when you let it go. It transforms. Becomes something harder to name. A mixture of distance, clarity, and a kind of grief for the relationship you hoped could one day be more. A quiet funeral for the version of brotherhood that never existed. But the grief didn't stop the growth. In the months that followed, I became someone I didn't recognize, but in the best way. I bought a bigger place, this time with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view that never bored me. My boss asked me to mentor new hires. I agreed, and for the first time, I heard my own voice carry weight, not as the quiet one, not as the underdog, but as someone who'd earned his seat at the table. Sometimes I'd find myself pausing in the middle of those meetings, watching a younger employee hang on every word I said, and wonder what Scott would think if he saw me now. The irony didn't escape me. I'd become everything he swore I couldn't be. Not by mimicking him. Not by chasing the things he valued. But by doing what he never could, shutting my mouth, putting in the work, and letting time do the talking. There was a Sunday afternoon when Amelia and I were walking through the park, holding iced coffees, laughing about something trivial, when she asked, out of the blue, "Do you think he regrets it? How he treated you?" I thought for a moment. "No," I said. "I think he regrets where it left him. But not how he got there." She nodded like she understood. "That's enough for you?" I looked up at the sky. It was that soft, pre-evening shade of gold that makes everything feel warm and far away. "It has to be," I said. Eventually, the ripple reached the rest of the family. It started subtly, calls from my mother that lingered too long, filled with awkward pauses and loaded questions. "Your brother's different now," she'd say, like that was enough to erase years of silence and jabs. "He's going through something. Maybe he's finally learning." But I wasn't interested in who Scott was becoming. I was too invested in who I was becoming. Then came the birthday dinner. A cousin invited me out, just a casual gathering. No mention of Scott. No warnings. I almost didn't go, but I was tired of missing things because he might be there. So I showed up. And of course, there he was. Same posture. Same smile. But there was a hesitation in his eyes now, like he knew the rules had changed, and he no longer got to assume he belonged in every room. He didn't try to talk to me right away. We moved around each other like magnets flipped the wrong way, polite nods and nothing more. I laughed with cousins. Ate my fill. Felt whole. But at the end, when most people had left and I was helping clear plates, Scott approached. "Can we talk?" he asked. I paused. Then nodded toward the back patio. We stepped outside into the evening chill. "I owe you a lot," he said. "I've been thinking about everything I said to you. About how I treated you." I waited. No interruptions. No guiding his words. "I thought being the best meant being above you. Outshining you. But now I know I just needed to feel better than someone, and you were always the easiest target. Because you never fought back." Still, I said nothing. He looked down. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I remember it all." That caught me off guard. Because I wasn't used to Scott remembering. He'd always brushed off the past like lint. But now he stood there, small, tired, honest. And I realized something important. I didn't need an apology anymore. Because what I needed was what I already had. peace, purpose. A future built without permission from people who once kept me small. So I just said, "Thanks for saying that." And I turned to go. Not cruel. Not cold. Just done. A week after that conversation on the patio, a letter showed up at my place. Not a text. Not an email. A letter, handwritten, with my name in blocky, uneven ink. I almost didn't open it. Thought about tossing it into the drawer where unfinished apologies go to die. But something about the weight of it made me sit down at the table and carefully tear the envelope open. It wasn't long. Maybe a page. But every word landed heavy. Scott had written it the night after our talk. He admitted to more, things I hadn't even known he remembered. Little moments from our childhood I thought had only scarred me. The time he, accidentally, erased my science fair project the night before it was due. The way he laughed when our dad said I should take after my big brother. The names. The pranks. The way he twisted every success of mine into a fluke. "I think I thought you were competition," he wrote. "But you weren't. You were just trying to belong. And I made sure you never did." And then, the part that stuck with me, Ost. "You became a better man without needing to beat me. I spent so long needing to be the best that I forgot how to be good." I folded the letter. Sat with it. I didn't call him. Didn't write back. Because that letter wasn't for me. It was for him. Proof that he finally saw the wreckage he left behind. That same night, Amelia and I sat on the balcony, watching planes blink their way across the city sky. She was curled up beside me, her head on my shoulder, one leg tucked under her. "I think that was the end of it," I said. "The letter? The hold?" She nodded, like she understood the difference. It wasn't about punishment anymore. It wasn't about cutting him out of my life just to win. I had moved past needing revenge. The real payoff was this: a life built not in spite of him, but without him entirely. It made me think about how much time I'd lost worrying about his voice in my head. About how many rooms I'd entered wondering if I belong. But now I walked into places like I paid for the space. Because I did. And Scott? He was finally learning to live with less. Maybe he'd keep growing. Maybe not. But either way, I wouldn't be waiting on the sidelines for him to catch up. I wasn't his shadow anymore. I never reached back out. And I never regretted it. Closure didn't come from an apology, or a grand moment of reconciliation. It came from knowing I didn't need either. I had already walked away, already built something stronger in the silence he left behind. If I could say one thing to anyone who's been made to feel small, by a brother, a parent, a partner, it's this: you don't have to fight to be seen. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is leave the room, and build your own. And when they come knocking, not to make things right, but to find comfort in the house you built, you don't have to let them in. Not out of anger. Not out of spite. But because you finally understand your worth, and you won't hand it back for anyone.